London, England, Mayfair, 12:01 a.m., spring 1859. All the other young women paled before the dark-haired beauty he was dancing with. This woman was the one he wanted to spend the rest of his life with, even if it killed him or earned the displeasure of his father. They were of the same social class, so marriage wasn't out of the question, if only he knew her name. Certainly people recognized her. He'd seen it in their faces and the way they had whispered to each other behind their hands. Whispers he had ignored as deliberately malicious. They called her hurtful things no lady should have been called. Her eyes were the most striking thing about her, beyond what he'd already noted of her appearance. Seen in the dim gaslight, they could have been amber. Daylight or out of doors would probably prove them to be a dull brown, however. "If I may be blunt, could I inquire as to what your name is?" She smiled briefly, ducking her head as a faint blush colored her cheeks. "Miss Lucy Cartwright." "Ah, lovely. It suits you." He looked up, seeing another man lingering nearby with an unhappy look on his face. "I believe your fiancé wishes to have a turn with you." Lucy looked over her shoulder and frowned. "No, that's my brother, sir, not my fiancé. You were mistaken." Was he? He had his doubts as to that claim, since neither of the siblings bore a resemblance to each other. Lucy was as fair-skinned and dark-haired as it could get. Her brother was blonde, hair tied back with a green ribbon. They didn't even share the same scent. Hers was a crushed greenery and sage after a rainstorm. Her so-called brother was wood smoke and sun-warmed leather. He shrugged it off as unimportant. Tonight was what mattered most. He would have Lucy or die trying, regardless of her mate or kinsman's feelings. "I know who and what you are." He had suspected it as soon as he spotted her. There had been signs, of course. A touch too quiet in her steps, a torn sleeve she had not heeded, a careful mask over her expression as she stepped carefully through the throng. Miss Cartwright's eyes narrowed as she turned away and glanced back a moment later, her eyes catching a flash from the gaslight as they reflected. No human had eyes like that. "You accuse me of being precisely what, sir?" She was being polite for the sake of propriety. But if he kept pressing her in this fashion, things would turn awry for everyone involved. At least the girl had sense to keep her voice lowered even under the sound of music and the spinning dancers. "Come with me. We'll discuss this elsewhere in somewhat more private surroundings," William asked. She was polite, even frosty in her answer as she folded her arms over her chest. "I'm afraid I must refuse you unless my fiancé accompanies us." He cursed silently but forced the words out. His intent had to been find Lucy Cartwright on her own, so her fiancé complicated things somewhat. Of course, he's welcome to accept.